What if you were locked in a prison, chained between guards, your future sealed by darkness, and then, in the silence of night, a light appeared? Not a torch, but an angel. Welcome to Divine War Stories, where the battles are unseen, but the victories shake the heavens. Here, we uncover the angelic interventions, the supernatural showdowns, and the divine rescues that prove heaven fights for us. It was the dead of night in Jerusalem, and the prison was cold, damp, and crawling with shadows, the kind of place where hope goes to die, and silence is the loudest sound in the room. But within those thick stone walls, surrounded by chains and armed guards, sat a man named Peter, not broken, but still, waiting, breathing, praying, chained between two soldiers, while 16 others stood watch like vultures in armor, and outside, King Herod slept, convinced his problem was contained, his message clear. No one defies the throne, no one escapes alive. The city above may have slumbered, but heaven did not, for on the edge of despair, Peter was not forgotten, and while others feared swords, Peter had a different weapon, faith, not the kind that shouts or performs for crowds, but the quiet kind, the kind that holds steady when the iron bars close and the sentence is already written. He didn't fight the chains, he whispered prayers into them, trusting that someone beyond the walls could still hear. Meanwhile, in a small house across the city, a group of believers gathered, not to plot an escape, but to plead for a miracle, their voices low but their hearts ablaze, lifting Peter's name before the throne of heaven, not knowing that their prayers would soon split the veil between realms and activate something no sword could stop, a divine response from the army of the Almighty. Then, it happened. The air shifted inside the cell, a sudden brilliance brighter than any torch ignited the darkness, but the guards didn't stir, their eyes wide open but frozen, as if time itself bowed to something holier, and there, standing in the impossible, was an angel of the Lord, not a vision, not a metaphor, but a being of light and command, and Peter, still half asleep, squinted through the brilliance, blinking against glory. "Get up quickly," the angel said, his voice like thunder disguised in silk, and as Peter obeyed, the chains, solid, Roman, forged in fear, fell from his wrists like paper, not because of brute force, but because divine authority had overridden the laws of metal, and before Peter could even ask what was happening, the angel was already moving, and Peter followed, barefoot on stone, confused but alive. Step after step, the impossible continued, passing the first set of guards like mist, then the second, and not a single sword lifted, not a single alarm rang. The doors swung open as if controlled by unseen hands, and Peter, still not fully sure if this was dream or deliverance, kept walking, kept breathing, kept trusting the light that led him, one foot at a time, toward freedom. When they reached the final gate, the one that led into the city, it opened on its own, not with noise or creaks, but with the silence of sovereignty, like even the hinges knew to obey, and as they stepped into the open street, the angel vanished, no farewell, no final word, just gone. As if his mission had expired the moment freedom was fulfilled, and Peter stood there alone, in the cool night air, with nothing but his robe, his heartbeat, and the realization that God had come for him. He walked, almost running, almost floating, straight to the house where the prayers had not stopped, where the candles still flickered and voices still lifted his name, and when he knocked, it wasn't the guards who opened the door, it was a girl named Rhoda, and she didn't scream or faint, she just gasped, ran back into the house, and left Peter standing outside like a ghost at his own resurrection. Inside, no one believed her, not at first, because when you've prayed so long for something that seems impossible, it's hard to accept when the impossible knocks on your door, but Peter kept knocking, louder now, and when the door finally opened again, what they saw was not a vision, it was victory, not a ghost, but the man himself, breathing proof that heaven listens, heaven moves, and when God sends an angel, not even iron can argue. And so the house erupted, not in chaos, but in praise, not in whispers, but in wonder, as Peter raised his hand and told them to quiet down, his eyes wide, his voice trembling, as he told them everything. The chains, the light, the angel, the freedom, and every word felt like fire and oil mixed together, igniting the room with something greater than fear, faith, the kind that multiplies in the dark and bursts into flame the moment the light arrives. The story didn't end there, it began to spread, not like gossip, but like wildfire touched by prophecy, echoing through streets, slipping through Roman ears, reaching the very halls of Herod's palace where confusion erupted, soldiers scrambling, interrogations fired like arrows. But no one had answers. The guards swore they had not slept, the doors showed no sign of force, the chains lay broken with no explanation, and Herod, the one who thought he held all power, was now face to face with something greater, something he could not command. For the empire could control armies, they could forge iron, pass laws, and crucify men, but they could not stop heaven when it decided to move, and in that night, one man's deliverance became a declaration. No cell is too dark, no chain too thick, no ruler too powerful when God steps in, and as the dust settled over Jerusalem, Peter disappeared, not into silence, but into purpose, continuing to speak, to lead, to walk with the boldness of someone who had seen divine light and lived to tell the story. But this story isn't just about Peter, it's about anyone who has ever felt trapped, forgotten, surrounded by forces they cannot escape, because the real prison isn't just built of stone, it's fear, anxiety, despair, and this story shouts from the ancient pages that even in the darkest places, even when all seems lost, heaven is not quiet, God is not far, and rescue may look nothing like we expected, but it always comes on time. And if you've ever wondered if angels still walk among us, if they still shatter chains and open doors, remember this. God never stopped sending them, we just stopped expecting them, we stopped looking for the glow in the shadows, we stopped believing that divine rescue was still part of our story. But Peter's night proves that every cell has a door, and every door has a key, and sometimes, that key is carried by wings of fire. So when you pray, pray like those believers in that hidden house, not perfectly, not formally, but desperately, passionately, because heaven doesn't respond to perfect words, it responds to hungry hearts, and when you knock, keep knocking, even when no one believes, even when it feels like you're speaking into silence, because one day, your miracle might knock back. And if you feel forgotten, held in by something you can't name, whether it's grief, depression, addiction, or shame, know this. There's no chain the Father can't break, no guard he can't silence, no gate he can't open, and sometimes, right when you think it's over, that's when the light breaks in, and the angel stands in your cell and says, "Get up, quickly. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready, but now." Peter didn't plan his escape, he didn't beg the guards, he didn't scream for help, he trusted, he waited, he walked when the way appeared, and maybe that's your invitation too, not to fight the prison with panic, but to wait for the voice that cuts through fear, to follow the whisper that leads to light, even when your feet feel heavy and your past still clings to your heels. That one night changed Peter forever, not just because he was freed, but because he saw with his own eyes that the war is not just on earth, it's divine, it's invisible, it's fought by angels on assignment, and while the world sleeps and rulers plan, heaven is already moving, already writing a better ending than you imagined, already crafting the kind of rescue that turns your greatest fear into your loudest testimony. So the next time you feel like it's too late, too hard, too far gone, remember Peter, asleep in chains but not abandoned, remembered by heaven, visited by glory, and walked out of death into purpose, because the war you're fighting might be invisible, but the reinforcements are real, and your cell isn't your sentence, it might just be your stage for a miracle. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that you're not alone in your battle, consider joining us here at Divine War Stories, where every episode brings light to hidden battles, courage to quiet hearts, and proof that the war is not over just because you're tired. Heaven is still fighting for you, and your freedom might be closer than you think. All you have to do is get up when the light comes.